everyone's here too. All right, so it is Thursday, June 17th, and the time is 5:33, and this is the Ann Arbor Public Market Advisory Commission. So Stephanie, can you do the roll call?
Yes. Peter Wolf.
Here.
Lisa Young.
Here.
Jeff Namath.
Here.
Holly Parker.
Here.
And joining us again, or for the first time, Stephanie Willett.
Okay.
So everyone is present. Good job, all.
All right. So then moving on to item C, the approval of the agenda. You should have all received the agenda in your notes. Are there any changes, modifications, comments on that? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No one's opposed, so it passes. All right, item D, first public commentary, agenda items only, 3 minutes per speaker. Are there any public?
Yeah, I'm seeing a hand raised. All right. Hello. Public commentary. Carlene, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here. And I hope it isn't too loud in the background because it's watering season, so the pump's running. All right. I just wanted to say that when it comes to the changing of the rules, I'm not opposed to having anything changed, but I think there needs to be plenty of time for input from vendors, public, anybody who has something to say about it. So, so far we haven't seen anything in writing. And I know that you said there were 17 people that last month, maybe there's been more input since then that were in favor. But I guess I would just like to say we've been having from 75 to 79 vendors there on Saturday. That's all.
Great. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
None that I am seeing.
All right, so seeing no additional comments, move on to item E, which is approval of the previous minutes of the previous meeting. So I didn't actually see that in the packet. Did that not come through, or is that another message?
Yeah, I didn't send it separately because it is available on the Registrar, but I can put it into the chat right now. Okay. Or I can actually just share my screen if that would be more helpful for me.
That would be good, yeah.
I will be screen sharing of the minutes from the May meeting. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I'll just scroll slowly.
Thank you.
People. Yes. Can I scroll down? And that is the end.
Great. Does anyone have any changes, additions, modifications? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Is that a second, Holly?
Second, yes, I second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from the previous meeting, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Now moving on to item G, regular business agenda items. New market personnel update.
All right. So, as you might have seen from that minute update from before, we have hired a new assistant market manager. She is the third in sort of the market manager hierarchy, right? It's myself, and then it's Becky Locke, who is assistant manager, and also the outreach coordinator. And then the new person, her name is Liz Leonard. She comes to us. She just graduated from Yale. She was part of the sustainable food program there and does have experience with food policy, as well as she helped with their student booth at their farmers market in New Haven, and does come to us with a lot of sustainable food experience, and is also really excited about getting involved in food policy as well. So we're pretty excited to have her. She started last Wednesday, so she's been with us for just about 3 markets, and is already learning the ropes, and it's been really great. We've been happy to have her. Some of the vendors have met her already, not everyone. In addition to her, we have an intern that has joined us for the summer. Her name is Jenny Kurkowski. She is actually my former student from Washtenaw Community College last semester. And she wanted to volunteer at the market as an intern, and she wanted specifically to learn about our food assistance programs. So she's been there helping with that. And we're in the process of actually trying to see if we can formalize that relationship with WCC and offer an ongoing internship for the social work students. But that's sort of in process. But she's been a really big help. Some of you have probably seen her around the market. She's been with us about 3 weeks to 4 weeks, about a month now. But again, really great asset to the community of our market, as well as staff. And lastly, not official personnel, but we do have a volunteer that has been helping us for about 3 or 4 hours on Saturdays, who Becky actually knows from the school gardening community over at King Elementary. And she is a native Mandarin speaker, and that has been a huge help to us with some of our communication issues we've been having, to give folks a little bit more assistance, especially people that are getting their food stamps tokens with us. She's been with us about 3 weeks, and we're very happy. We had been hoping to have some help in the Mandarin translation department, so that has sort of serendipity came together and then brought her to us. So that's sort of our updates with our personnel overall. So just to recap, we have 1 new hired staff member, 1 new intern, and a regular volunteer as well. And last year, we didn't have any interns or volunteers. So this is something that is getting a little bit back to what had been happening before. So that's great.
That's great. Wonderful.
That was pretty much the update on that. Otherwise, Becky and I, we're not going anywhere. This is just additional people, so it's been really helpful to have that.
Great.
So I guess, are you ready to move on to the general market updates?
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's COVID protocols too for yes.
Yep. So there's facility, COVID, and then events. So
yep.
Facility, the big question around the market is, when are the bathrooms going to be completed? Everyone's asking, everyone's wondering. And I don't have an official timeline, but I do know that they have poured some concrete, and I'm pretty sure that they're waiting for that to completely set before they go to the next step, which is replacing the tile and getting us back up to speed. So we hope that it will be done quickly, but given how strange of a year it has been, and also, how much contractors are in demand right now, I'm not sure, what their schedule looks like, but that's where we are at the moment. So we hope to have it operational sooner rather than later. The last time I spoke with the parks maintenance staff, we talked about the possibility of maybe just opening one of the restrooms first, and just making it available for everyone just so that we can get it faster, because we know it is a hardship for staff, it's a hardship for vendors. And that will also make it a lot easier for us when things open up a little more, to be able to open the market office building back to customers as well. We still do have the portables in the parking lot. That hasn't gone away. And partly because of the reason that we don't have the functional restrooms, that we are keeping the sinks around in the market for a little bit longer. We have had one removed already just because it was in the way of people's stalls. But we figured, having an extra opportunity for hand washing, if we don't have that bathroom facility, we thought was a good idea. But other than that, no real other updates about anything facility related. Although actually that's not true. One more point is we had an ornithologist come through last week. It was actually the city ornithologist, because we had some issues with unfortunate, baby birds and bird refuse, I'll say, falling onto stalls. It happened more to the artisan market than it happened to us, but we had an ornithologist out to assess, which species are protected. And unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, the ones that had been the most impactful offenders were actually protected species, so that we cannot remove those. So we know that there are 6, at least, house finch nests throughout the market, and the rest are house sparrows, which can be removed. But given that the house finches sort of are the ones that are causing problems, but cannot be removed because they are legally protected native species, there's not really that much that we can do about this. I know in the past, that analysis hadn't really been done. And Stephanie was saying to me that they had just sort of power washed the whole thing. But if we are going to move forward with that, we really do have to work with the ornithologist and make sure that they know which nests are which. Also, it being, middle of June, it might be a problem that resolves itself shortly in a few weeks. But we are sort of assessing it. But the long and the short of it is that the most problematic nest areas cannot be removed. But that's all I have for facility.
Is there any way that if we're going to leave the sinks, if we're leaving them because of the bathroom issue, to get the sinks put down by the bathroom or closer to the bathroom?
Well, we do have the one in 102 already. You mean the portable
so
bathrooms?
Far away from the bathroom.
You mean the portable ones?
Well, yeah.
Sure. I'm not sure. Obviously, there's no plumbing over there. So it is a little bit difficult. I could inquire, because before they had rented a sink to have over by those. Right now we've been having, the hand sanitizing kiosk thing. I can't ask, but I know that, the stalls that are closest on that side are very full. So it's not like we have an open stall in that area to put it like we've had in the past. But I will reach out to Parks Maintenance and I will ask them.
Just a thought, because I mean, if
Sure. Makes sense. But I will ask them.
Okay.
I'm making a note of that right now.
Okay. Hi. Okay, sorry. Still getting used to unmuting and muting. Anyway.
It's okay.
I was just gonna say, like Jeff said, I don't know, maybe we could put it wouldn't have to be in a stall necessarily, but like if it's close to the portable bathrooms, then that would be like closer to the sandlot area. But even putting, the kind of temporary water bucket cooler with a nozzle on it, hand washing, if we're not able to get something more official, could be another possibility. Because I think it, like Jeff was saying, it would be nice to have something over there besides just hand sanitizer.
What about, just a thought, what about on the corner of the office building where the compost, the recycle bins are, and that storage container is for all the stuff? I mean, there's got to be water in the market building. You could run a hose along the edge of wouldn't be a trip hazard for the sink. And that way, if someone used the bathroom, they could just go wash their hands. I mean, those things are, I'm not complaining too much. You know, but those porta potties are pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of embarrassing, honestly, that customers have to even go in there. But I understand what's going on, and it's for the better in the long run. But I do think it would be nice to have that option for them to go, 20 steps to wash their hands as opposed to having to walk all the way across the market. So, but I just thought of that. Maybe put it on that corner there by the market building. That way you'd have access to water.
Yeah, Stephanie.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There's also that, I don't know if you still have it, but that blue sink that rolls and you plug it in and it's a sink. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Do you have that?
I have no idea. I've never seen anything with
ask Becky or facility, but what it is yeah, it's a portable sink and you plug it in. You don't need to hook water up to it because you put like a bucket of water under it, and then the power from plugging it in is what makes it run. So if you could find that might be a good solution.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely ask. And the one thing about hooking up, Jeff, to the market building is that they had to shut off the water in the building because of the bathroom renovation. But I could ask. So that's really, the issue with all of this. And 102 is pretty close on the other side of the building. Obviously, it's not necessarily that visible. But I think I would be more in favor of getting something, right next to the portable toilets. And again, yeah, it's not something we're really that excited about. They do get cleaned twice a week, yet it is still, an issue. And also it's used by the artisan market as well after us on Sundays, but it is cleaned on Mondays and Thursdays. And it's locked when we're not utilizing it. So I think really the issue is, Saturday market itself just gets that much use out of it. But you're right. It's obviously not an ideal situation for long term. We're beyond a year right now of utilizing it, because remember, we did get it because of the pandemic. It wasn't just because of the renovations. And it still is around because of the pandemic. It's just, lucky actually that we have it when the renovation is going on. I'm sure, of course, we would have gotten something anyway, but just to clarify that's the idea. And, Perrytown does have their bathroom facility, so it's not like the only option either is the portable toilets, but I agree with all of you. It would be really nice if this could get resolved very soon to have people have a better setup to work with. So I'll check in with the parks maintenance staff to see what options they have for us. And I'll talk to Becky too about that portable thing. Okay. Any other questions, comments about that? Okay. All right. So if we're ready, we could talk about that. Sort of was an overlap with the COVID, but so we'll allow it to be a nice segue. So yeah, the sinks are going to stay at least until the bathrooms are reopened. They might get moved around. One in 102 has been working very well because that's not anyone's stalls. And the one in 5 area, it's not anyone's stalls either. So those have been some, okay areas. I know the one in number 5 is not too popular, especially the last couple of weeks where it was sort of overflowing. So we had to close it on Saturday. But again, we had already reached out to Park Ops a couple times to help clean it up and empty it. And they finally did so for Wednesday market this week. So at least that part has been resolved. But with the COVID protocols on that, we're going to try to keep the hand washing sinks, until the bathrooms are back on. Also, a big change that's coming up is July 1st is the date at which vendors and staff no longer have to wear masks outside. Staff still does have to wear masks in the office building until July 6th due to MIOSHA regulations as well as the City of Ann Arbor directives. But starting July 1st in the market itself, vendors and staff no longer have to wear masks outside. So that's a pretty big thing. I know a lot of people are excited about that development and are looking forward to that. It's a hard push getting to the end. There's just 2 weeks left. And some people sort of are already exasperated, don't understand why we have to do it, but for the safety of everybody. Also, we did get a lot of feedback from customers early on when the orders came down a couple weeks ago, saying, please don't get rid of the requirement yet. We still don't feel safe. So that's another reason why the city made the decision to drag out as long as they did. I've definitely gotten feedback from people saying, well, this is the only market that still does it, or I don't do this anymore. But, obviously we're a different situation and we're following exactly what the city and the other parks facilities are doing as well, in addition to feedback we've received from customers. And then in terms of when customers are coming back in the market office building, I think that really is going to be determined by when the bathrooms are done. I don't really personally think it makes sense to have customers coming into the market office building if it's not necessarily usable by them. I think it would reduce a lot of questions or people being upset that we don't have facilities available. So I think with that said, we're probably going to keep the market office window for tokens a little while longer, at least until the bathroom scenario is all fixed, so that people can come back into our space. Because right now, obviously, it's not necessarily free of walking hazards, right? There's construction materials around, so that's another reason why we will not yet bring in customers into our market office space. And then otherwise, we've gotten rid of the one-way traffic. That's officially gone. And we have also gotten rid of spaces between stalls for the most part on Saturdays. And that's more just because we needed to do it to be able to fit everybody. We still do it a little bit on Wednesday, but that's getting phased out gradually as well.
What was the ETA again on the bathrooms too? When do you expect that to actually be resolved?
I have no idea. It was supposed to be finished May 1st. There was an issue. The plumber got COVID, so that put things off. I know there's been some issues with the contractors submitting their plans and doing the work in a timely fashion. Park operations is on the case. They've been trying to figure out, what's taking so long, why it's taking so long. But yes, we're definitely well beyond the original completion date that we were given. But I do not have an updated date at this time.
Stephanie, did you say that you have gone back to two-way traffic?
Yes.
Are they going to take the one-way arrows off soon?
Yeah. Yes, we will. We were sort of gradually going back. I mean, we took the stanchions away. I think were the most visible signs. But yes, we will be updating that hopefully on Saturday now that we have extra staff to help with that.
Okay, great.
So
What's that, Jeff?
Oh, sorry. Since they're lifting the mandate for the masks, does that, or I guess for a lot of the, not necessarily just the masks, but just in general, does that mean we're going to have an in-person meeting next month?
Great question. So I got an email today from the city saying that they actually recommend that we keep it virtual until the end of the year. We can talk about that because again, City Hall is still not open yet. So that's part of the issue, but we can talk about it. But the recommendation from the city was to keep it virtual throughout the rest of the year. but we can decide on that, or if people want to talk about that now, we can do that too.
It seems like, I mean, if City Hall's closed, that's kind of a deal breaker in terms of, I don't know where we would to be recorded and to actually have the visibility that we need for this meeting. That I don't know if there's another venue. But.
Sure. And I also know too, in the email that they sent around, like they're not offering hybrids yet. So it would really just be like only in person. It wouldn't be able to have it sort of half virtual, half in person. So I think it would be something that we would have to agree on as a commission, that everybody can physically be present, and then work with City Hall to figure out what's going on with that. Maybe for July, we'll stay virtual. And then, you know, as things sort of pan out, we can assess moving forward beyond that, if that works for people.
And I guess it's a question too for everyone, is does anyone feel uncomfortable with meeting in person at City Hall currently, if for for example, for July or for August?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I feel fine for it.
I think that's a good idea to plan on, you know, just so we know what to plan on, have the next one, like you said, be virtual, and then see where we're at then. I mean, everything's still kind of up in the air as far as, you know, so far everything seems to be moving the right direction. As long as we're still moving the right direction at the end of next month, then maybe we'd be good to go.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, if we're in person and we're in an enclosed space, I guess, were we anticipating everyone wearing masks or not, just unmasked in a room together? I feel mixed about it. So I'm so eager to see people in person. And I would love to see you all in person. And I just still feel some anxiety about being in an enclosed space. It's much different if we're outdoors or whatever, but I don't know, just to be frank, I'm a bit mixed.
Sure. Well, then I think, you know, maybe we should definitely stay virtual for July, and then assess what we want to do for August and beyond.
I think that seems fair. Yep.
Great. Make a note of that. Okay.
Stephanie, just so you know, I'm going to be traveling during our July meeting, and I'll try to call in, but I'm not going to make any guarantees on anything. But I'll be back in August.
All right. Yep. Do what you got to do for sure. No worries. Great. And in terms of COVID changes, I think the next one sort of segues into the last piece for these general updates, which is events. The good news is events are coming back gradually. We had a very successful Flower Day on Memorial Day weekend. The artisan market loved it. We had a string quartet that came and joined us from the Ann Arbor Camerata group that is just rebranded themselves with a different name. But yeah, so that was really great. So much so that the artisan market now wants to invite vendors to come be part of their market more regularly, and wanted to see too if there was any other opportunities that we could do a combined market in the future. Obviously, that's 100% up to vendors. You know, I personally think there's some value in it, but you know, obviously the Saturday market is our main focus for a weekend as well as Wednesday. But they have reached out to some vendors. And again, like if anyone knows vendors that may be interested in joining the Sunday Artisan Market, let me know and I will put them in touch with Deb, who is the market manager, who also is someone that helps Darren Otis. So you probably see her around market if you don't know who she is already. So that was sort of our first, you know, getting back into events, seeing if it was plausible. And also too, in August, we've decided that the food truck rallies are returning. So that means we're going to be doing one in August, September, and October. They happen on the first Wednesday of the month in the evening. I believe it's a 5 to 8 p.m. thing like that. So we've been trying to, you know, recruit some more of our trucks back. With that said, we've been having food trucks occasionally at Wednesday markets. We had some coming at Saturdays. part of the reason that we had done the Saturdays is we wanted to bridge the gap with the food truck rallies. But at this point, when it is very busy, Saturday markets don't really work for food trucks. We sort of already knew that, but we just wanted to try it out and bring something else. So we've had a couple of the last 2 weeks, but I think we have maybe one more pre-scheduled for July, and then that's it for Saturdays until it slows down again. But Wednesdays, we're trying to have regular trucks come to market. And just to clarify, for those who don't know, these are folks that are mobile food vendors, so they are a slightly different status than our producers and as well as our artisans. They are on a different time schedule, right? Their time schedule is usually 10:30 to 2-ish. Some people stay later, but I know there was a question about that yesterday about their status, and they are people that are vetted separately. They have a separate application system than do regular vendors. And I just felt like it was necessary to perhaps clarify that. But yes, our focus with those will be Wednesdays during market, and then of course the food truck rallies. Beyond that, we haven't officially set any events yet, but we are exploring possibilities of bringing back events, that we've had before, with kids activities, things like that. I know people have been asking about that. And it's not an official event, but I think it's maybe in this category. We got some good news that the Ann Arbor District Library is making a children's book about the market. Thank you, Lisa, for connecting that opportunity. It's so cute. It's for preschool and young elementary kids. And I've seen the draft. It's really great. It focuses on a lot of the events that we've had at the market throughout. I know that there's food truck rallies that are in there. There's the tree lighting. There's other events that we've had. Full Moon is showcased, and of course the produce. So it's a really, really cute thing. And we're in the process of finding some archival photos to give to them. And then it's also going to have like a seasonal produce guide too. But it's a series that they're doing called, was it, Lisa, like Ann Arbor Adventures, I believe?
Yeah, it's just something that the library's been doing. And I think they do some hard books, but then a lot of it's offered online too. So it can be viewed online, which I think is really great given all the opportunities that the libraries offered during COVID. A lot of people are now used to getting on their website to do things. Yeah, they're doing it on their own. They just reached out to me for the photos, and so I'm glad I could connect them with you. So it is really cute, and I think it'll be a nice introduction to people in Ann Arbor that don't already know about the market.
That would be great. And it might also be a fantastic event when it comes out. We can have a kids reading event as part of it. So it's really good. I know the park staff is really excited about it. My supervisors are really, really excited. So it's, good news in the midst of everything that we've been dealing with. So hooray for partnerships.
Yeah, Stephanie Will and I, when we worked with them on the history display, the library was so wonderful to work with.
Yeah, definitely. Are we going to be able to get copies for the office of the book, do you think?
I think so. I mean, I haven't talked to them directly yet, but I would hope so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. Yay. Great.
We need a picture of Lucy reading it.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's, I think, all that I have right now for the events portion of the general market updates.
All right.
I have a question. This isn't really an event, but are you planning on doing the stall move up this summer?
I think so. I think that's in the plans, is to continue with that. It would be nice if we could sort of iron out the sign-in process changes before we do that. Although, they're not necessarily fully related, but I think it would be nice to get it all together. But yes, that is the tentative plan, that we will be doing that now that we have gone back to giving people their full stalls, stopping doing spacing, because that was really what had held us up last year, was that we didn't think it was fair to do it when we weren't allowing people to have their full number of stalls or to be in all the stalls that they had chosen. But we are planning on doing it again in August. Yes.
I'm not certain, I should know this, but when will you have a report, like who's giving up their stalls and how many are going to be available and all that? Is that something that comes out like in July or?
That's a good question. I wasn't aware that a report was needed, but I can
Well, we
maybe
usually
coordinate with Stephanie on what has been done in the past and have more info about that. But yeah, because we're still trying to figure out, there's some people that we haven't heard back from yet. Like, for example, we know Carolina is retiring, and we know Denise sort of said she wants to, but we don't have a final answer yet from her. And I've heard from other members of the family that, you know, she's still mulling it over. But I feel like once the June 30th deadline for payment passes, we will have a better idea of who's officially retired. And then we can talk after that. But I will circle back with Stephanie and clarify that at a different time.
Sounds good. Any other comments on the before we move on? All right, so then moving on to item 3, the assign-in process.
All right. Well, we had the preliminary conversation about this last meeting, but I thought it was really important to get Stephanie's feedback as the previous market manager who was, you know, very much aware of that process, whereas me, I've only heard what it was like and from people. So I just thought this would be a continuing conversation. And I also wanted to wait to hear from her before we wrote anything up concretely, as well as, you know, see if there's any other public comment. And then, you know, the draft I felt like would be a nice thing to share for next meeting. But I don't know if we need to recap the conversations, because Peter, you weren't here for last meeting either.
Okay. I last meeting, so I think I'm caught up.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked to some other folks about it too, so I feel like I've got an idea of where the conversation was. So.
All right. Well, I just wanted to know if there was any more feedback, if anyone had talked to anybody since, if they had anything else to add to the conversation. Because as you can read through the meetings, like the minute meeting, or excuse me, the other way around, meeting minutes from last month, we could tell that, you know, there were some people that were strongly not necessarily against the changes, but sort of like had a lot of questions, wanted to know exactly, you know, what would be changed, what would be kept the same, how there would be certain issues addressed. And then there was Helen and other people that had spoken to me, you know, outside of the meeting space about how much they had preferred that way. I did get feedback from another vendor recently who was sort of could see both sides, right? They sort of thought, oh, you know, I personally kind of liked picking that day my stall, but, you know, they could also see how it might be more helpful to larger vendors, people that take longer time to set up, things of that nature. But, you know, from my perspective, it seems like this is something we've been living with for over a year. People have gotten kind of used to it, at least maybe they have, I'm not sure. And of course, with anything new, there are some kinks that need to be worked out. And, you know, we're still very much open to any feedback. But it seems to me at this point that, you know, there's more positives than negatives, at least from what I've heard. But I know Carlene said in the beginning, public comment, she was very interested in, you know, having maybe more time for people to submit feedback, maybe having a public meeting of market folk to talk about once we have something written to share with them next month, or, you know, whenever people have time. I mean, it's always hard to make big decisions in the height of the growing season, of course. But just wanted to see if you all had any other thoughts, anything else from last meeting to now.
Can I?
Please.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited we're talking about this. This is something that, you know, had been brought to us even before COVID, as, you know, can we improve this process? What can we do to improve it? So it is exciting that we're looking at this now. I definitely see you know, we are losing something and going one way, and gaining something as well. There are both sides, and like, especially the things that I would be concerned about as well for the new daily vendors, which we're talking about here, is I think when we did the sign-in process in the mornings before, it was very obvious, what the seniority was, where you were in the seniority system. And then you were then able to say like, okay, this person gets picked before me and then I pick here. And now it's less obvious. And I am worried that for like new vendors, maybe not being as aware that they do have the option to choose their spot before vendors that have signed up, even after them. And so I don't know if there would be long-term some way of, making that a key part of the orientation process, but then also like a very easy way to check the seniority lists. So you kind of knew, because I think it is on, each vendor to take the initiative, especially now, if they don't like their spot and they feel like they would rather have another one. And if you don't really know that's an option, then that might be something we could lose. But I think we could, address that and just make it part of, more what market staff can help the vendors through that if they're newer. Also, talking about the log jam, and I know we were concerned with traffic and whether or not it's worse now because dailies can get there whenever earlier. And personally, from what I see, it seems like the traffic situation is improved just because I think that when we look at the number of dailies at the market and the number of annual vendors, and before all of the dailies coming in at once, that's more spread out. And I think I don't know if you have the number, Stephanie, but is it like 50% are dailies and 50% are annuals?
I think it's more of like a 60-40 at this current moment.
Okay.
Based on just who's been coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like it's, easier on most sides, and I could see how one or two people might be more affected. But I think it's more an issue of, where you are placed in the market, as opposed to like the annuals and the dailies getting there at different times. So like, the log jams really tend to happen up in the corner area of some of the spaces, and like less so down near the sidewalk because there's more room. And, you had talked last meeting about maybe making the market taking a more active role in making sure these things don't happen, and maybe setting like a time or a schedule for when people arrive. I think that it could make things worse if we made it all of the daily vendors, arrive at a certain time, but, maybe taking more look at those specific spots. But I don't know if the market wants to get involved in that kind of thing. Like a lot of times vendors do sort a lot of those things out on their own and are able to kind of figure it out. But also, going back to what Carlene was saying and making it the process for input, I would love to hear more about what your thoughts are on that, Stephanie, and how to do that. I think it is something that's been in place for a while, and that we should take our time to make sure that we are, writing the new proposal to address as many concerns as we can, or like make it as good, of course, as we can. And I wonder if like the in-person meeting, like we talked about, I feel like that would be a good thing, just because this is such a big change. And also maybe sending out, this is a lot of work, but maybe we send out a survey ahead of time, trying to get a better feel for what people's reactions have been, and like, what concerns have you had, or like, what do you really like about this? and then bring that together and having like a meeting about it for anyone who wanted to attend. I do think that this process for public opinion for the market is, important, because I don't know if a lot of people are aware that we're really talking about it too much at these meetings or are able to necessarily call in. I think like they kind of lose sight of these meetings sometimes. And when we put more of a push on like, hey, this is a really big decision we're making, please give us your input, then that's helpful, as opposed to just saying like, we're talking about it at the commission meetings. So I don't know if you had thought more about that, but I think it would be a good thing to do. And then, writing the new rules and sending it through city council. I don't know if that would happen, before, and then we bring it to them is like, you like this draft, or we take what they said and then we write it. But either way, I kind of do foresee it taking, if we did it that way, taking longer than the summer, not that, we could keep doing the way we're doing it now while we're getting the input, but making it permanent is something else. I think that was all.
No, that's great. Thank you. There's a lot to think about there. Just to clarify, just first off the bat, your first point about the daily vendors not understanding the seniority system, like that is part of the orientation I do with them now. And the other thing too, when people do sign up online, it is the same signage so that they can see when they like put their yes or whatever, they can already see where they are in the daily vendor list. But I agree, like they might not understand. And I think too, the biggest sticking point really is like when you say, are you going to pay annually? People think, oh, that means I'm an annual vendor now. And you're like, no, not really. And I think that sort of was probably something that existed previously. And just the way that we do it now, people give me options. They say, oh, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, whatever. And then I do it all by seniority already. And I think a lot of the daily people do understand, when they get put in the sandlot, there are people that do request being there and it works for them, but there are other people that don't want to be in that spot. So that's, I think, but you're right. It's sort of like a perception issue too, because a lot of people have different perceptions on what spot works best for them, right? There's some, clearly agreed upon areas that the main aisle is great, but depending on what product you have, what might be a great spot for somebody might be a terrible spot for somebody else. And I think that gets confusing from other people's perspectives that might, have their opinion, but they might not think that, everything's going by seniority, but, it definitely is. And the new dailies, that's certainly a large part of their orientation that they're, explained all of this stuff. And when they do sign in, they can see that. And again, most people do use the sign-in sheet on the online. There are plenty of people, however, though, that they don't feel comfortable with technology or whatever. And they can still call in. They can still tell us in person, hey, I'm going to be here. Or there's other people too that are like, I'm here every Saturday. I'll call you if I'm not coming, right? There's a lot of flexibility in there too. So I just wanted to be clear too. It's like, we're not making people do this every single week if it's a regular vendor, right? It's just more that is something that we are looking for. And lastly too, for example, it's strawberry season. We have a couple growers that they only come for strawberry season. So I actually physically have called them and said, are you coming, to make sure that we do have a spot? So there's a lot, I guess, behind the scenes that maybe vendors aren't necessarily seeing that goes into this new process. And that might be something, for this conversation that we're going to have for everybody, that actually gets shared.
I think that that's a really, really important point, because I think you're right that we don't see a lot of that work that you do to communicate with them about where they're going to go. And like, I know it's happening. Like, I totally get it. And I mean, Bruce's point, I did want to address this that he made last meeting about the annual vendors getting a chance to pick their stalls before market started from what was kind of left over and what was empty if they wanted to move from their assigned spot. I think that, they are getting that chance. It's just happening ahead of time, but we don't really get to see that process, just kind of flow. And so it's when Helen and I had talked about this before COVID, I think one of my main things was, well, it takes a lot of trust in the manager to know like, yeah, she's actually doing this and she's doing her best to make sure that everybody does get to pick an order. And I think you're doing it, but I think that, maybe having the meeting might help, and talking about how you do that and your process for doing that might help a lot of people feel better about this new system.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sounds like when you do the write-up, Stephanie, that would be a great thing to somehow put in the write-up too, so that a future market manager will know that that's part of the procedure as well. So it just makes it transparent for everybody about all that work behind the scenes that you're doing to make everything fair.
Sure.
Or a different way to cast it could be almost, it's like a rubric, and you're creating a rubric for how you're making these assignments, and it's not just one thing, it's multiple things. And how do you at least formally establish what that hierarchy is and how you apply that, just so that people have a sense that there is. And that's, I think these points too of it feeling like a fair and even-handed process versus picking favorites and saying, I like you, I don't like you. If someone has that in their mind, then that's that it have to provide something structure to show them that there's actually it's a complicated process behind there, but there is actually structure. It's not just I like you, I don't like you.
Sure. And yeah, just to clarify, I mean, the seniority structure has not changed at all. That part is staying. It's just, how we decide, how we know, how we're informed who is coming any given week, and how that then reflects the map that is then created. But you're right. I think people need to understand that we're still using the same exact template. The only thing that's different is you're not just showing up unannounced, right? We're expecting people. And it's interesting. I was talking to another vendor just yesterday who it was their first time coming back to the market since COVID. And they're like, oh, wow, it seems like it's more civilized now, which I was sort of like, it kind of caught me aback. Whereas again, I didn't know what it was like before. I can only imagine. So I think having it understood by people that it is actually just a more organized version of what we were already doing, I think can also sort of make people feel a little bit better. But you're right. There's a lot of things that need to happen. There's a lot of conversations that need to happen in the open with people, because, vendors that are in the know, vendors that pay attention to these meetings are aware of all these things. But as Carlene said, we've been having 79, 80 vendors on Saturdays the last month or so. So there might be a lot of folks that, have no concept of this is not on their radar whatsoever. So I think we need to have a forum of some kind to address that. For sure.
So at the beginning, you were talking about maybe next meeting having just a draft of something for us to take a look at. Do you think that's still feasible? And I'm just sort of thinking that if there's something in writing, then it might be easier for people to also give you feedback, the vendors to give you feedback on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try my best. I got sort of, since we had the new person, a lot of the time has been taken up training them, obviously, and you're doing stuff like that. But I think there should be some time to be able to get it for the July meeting. I'll make a note of that.
Even if it's just a draft, I mean,
Sure.
We went through so many iterations of the decisions to be made for the artisans last year. So it was a process.
Yep, exactly. And speaking of artisans, there were a couple questions. I've gotten questions from artisans, and this might be a completely separate conversation for a different meeting. But they had questions about, their restriction on number of stalls. And then on the other side, I've had questions of the restriction on produce vendors only having 3 stalls. So this might be, opening up a broader conversation if we're going to go ahead and change those rules. That might be something to address as well, so we can maybe streamline the process a little bit. And again, I have no opinion either way on any of it. I'm just sharing what was shared with me recently from those 2 categories of vendors.
Is this the number of the 3 stalls just on Wednesdays, or is this for Saturday and Wednesday?
They were asking if they could have 4 stalls, just to clarify.
Like 4 permanent stalls?
Yes.
Okay, just curious. I think that is, yeah, like a separate conversation maybe devoted.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that would get pretty in depth. So yeah.
And again, yeah, I thought that was not what we had allowed in the rules. So I know that needs a rule change if that were to be the direction. But again, we're already really full. We're already not bringing new people on because we are so full.
Yeah, I think part of the thing is because there's so many stalls. I think isn't there extra annual stalls available? Is that what's going on, or
not really that many? I mean, there's a handful, and they're going to be taken by people that are moving into their annual space because we didn't really do it last year. So
I was just
but
curious.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe.
Also, I would say a word of caution for topics. I think we've seen if we spend a lot of time deliberating something, I feel like we want to make sure it's something that we might want to change in the first place, if you know what I mean. Like, I think
Sure.
an initial, like in the beginning, we need to decide like, okay, we want to look at this matter further because we feel like we might want to make that change.
Sure.
As opposed to, yeah, just because I think once we spend so much time on it, we felt like we need to do something, So
I agree. And I was just, sharing feedback that I had gotten. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm definitely saying that we certainly don't have space right now if a lot of people would want to do that. But good point. But I believe that's all I had in terms of the sign-in continued conversation.
Are there any other comments on the sign-in process before we move on? All right. So then moving on to item H, new business. Does anyone have any new business today? Seeing none, move on to item J, second public comment. Are there members of the public who would like to comment on anything, not limited to agenda?
I am seeing a hand raised. Go ahead, Carlene.
Hello. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed listening to the meeting tonight. I thought there was a lot of good conversation and input. One additional thing that I have, as far as the logjam part, it does occur in the corners. But one contributing factor is the fact that some of the stalls are being assigned as parking only. And some of those people are coming in those parking stalls pretty early and even parking several feet out away from the curb. And then it's making it really difficult for other vendors to get up, especially into corners. So that might be something to think about or talk about what that really should look like. Another thing, everybody might want to know that the governor has decided that June 22nd is the date for complete opening, 100% occupancy in and outdoors and no mask required. I don't think that the stall move up process, which I think you've all decided is going to take changing the rules, maybe several months, at least a lot more discussion. I don't think that should be tied to the stall move up for the annual stalls. And one thing to remember in that process is the fact that the rules say half of the empty stalls go to new or daily vendors that are becoming annuals, and the other half go to annual vendors. So probably the suggestion that Stephanie Willett had to put some kind of a hold on what we're doing right now while you work on what the process is really going to look like and have it clear in writing, I think is a good idea. That's all.
Thanks, Carlene.
Are there any other comments?
I am not seeing any other raised hands. there anyone else who can hear us that would like to participate? Well, I do not think that there is.
All right. So seeing no more public comment, we'll move on to item L, adjournment. The time is 6:33. Thank you all. And that's it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.